Thank you very much, and welcome back to this session. Now, the opening was a bit glamorous with all the books and all that. Now it's the substance of the conference. So serious talk, serious discussion from now on. Now, it's important for us to recognize that the theme that we have taken is on building inclusive communities. So inclusive here from the SDG, we can take it SDG 10.2, that is cutting across ethnicity, class, cutting across gender, cutting across disability, cutting across urban, rural, and various other themes in ensuring inclusivity. It's not just individuals and families, we are really looking at communities in nation building. And we are not just looking at Malaysia, we are looking at ASEAN, we are looking at Asia, and we have some references to other parts of the world as well. So that's the theme. So keynote, actually we started with one keynote speaker. Then we said, no, one cannot because the topic is SDG and SSE. So we'll add a second one. Then we said, no, we need to add one more. Then we said, no, we need to have an Asian perspective. So we ended up with 4. Then we said, okay, in a session like this, you have discussants. Discussant is not a speaker. Discussant is a commentator. Ben uses the word reactor, but I tend to use discussant. So discussant, someone from a political government perspective, another from civil society academic perspective. Now we are 20 minutes behind time. So as a result, we shorten time for people. We won't have Q&A in this session because this is a plenary. Your interactive sessions are the parallel session, but we will see if we have time. And some of you got burning question, but we have to stop to allow for plenary discussion. Now, if you take the theme of building inclusive communities, we have the 2 thematic areas of SDG and SSE. And in that, we built that our starting point is grounded research. So you might think, why grounded research? Because we should focus on practice. Grounded research in terms of identifying ground issues. So we thought the best person for this is Dr. Teo Siew En, who is the Director of Research. Then we thought in terms of practice, we need to give facelift to social work, because many of us are social workers, we are community workers, and so Professor Habibur Rahman from Bangladesh would be a best person to draw in from social work. Then we said, okay, SDG, social work, all is okay, but what is this SSE? And then we said, okay, we'll get Dr. Ellie to say a few words. And so Ellie will bring the SSE dimension. I think maybe this is the first conference in which ideological and theoretical framework of social work and SSE, which is solidarity economy, is being intermixed together from also Asian perspective. So Adrian from ILO, based in UNSCAP, where UN has done some, ILO has done some regional studies, might be able to bring that focus. And then we have Dato' Saifuddin and Dr. Ben Kunyonas to intervene. Now, any function of this sort, when you've got so many dynamic and powerful speakers, you must have a timekeeper. Where's our timekeeper? Okay, she's here. Like football, many of us watch football, right? You got a red card, after which the whistle will keep blowing till you stop. In the UN, they off the mic. We are more democratic and won't off the mic. So let me then move on, because this sets the framework for the whole conference. And by the evening session, when Dr. Ben moderates, we are drawing out the lessons from all the parallel session, because this is not just chaka, This is something concrete. We want to take it to the next level, and tomorrow would be a serious discussion as well. So with that note in mind, let us start with research. Some of you might be thinking, well, what a boring subject to start with, but we got an exciting speaker, Dr. Tham Siew-En, who is an anthropologist. You need to read her books that she has published. The QR codes are available in your program. So let's give a hand to Siew-En to present. She got 10 minutes. Okay, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Denison. Good morning, everyone. Selamat pagi to my DYB, Dato, Dati, professors, doctors, Tuan dan puan-puan. Thank you so much for giving me the chance to speak in this international conference with all of these distinguished guests. I'm actually not allowed to say this, but I'm actually very quite pressured. So please bear with me. My name is Siew-En. I am the director for the MySDG Center for Social Inclusion. We do policy advocacy on behalf of APPGM SDG. So for the next 10 minutes, as I'm coming from APPGM SDG, I will share with you our experiences of localizing SDG by using the grounded research approach, focusing particularly on the issues that we have found from 2020 until 2023. I'm sure most of you are aware and also familiar with the SDG, and which is also known as the Decade for Actions. So the UN member states are committed to work towards making this 17th SDG applicable, fully operational by 2030. Since there are four pillars of SDG, which are equity, sustainability, productivity, and participation. Since the initiation in 2015, many countries has discussed about the interest for localization of SDG, how the government can translate the indivisible and integrated SDG visions at the supranational, national, local strategy, and policy initiatives. So according to the UN, localization is defined as the process of defining, implementing, and monitoring strategies at the local level for achievable global, national, and subnational sustainable goals and targets. The process will involve the utilization of distinct tools, mechanisms, strategies, platforms, and innovation to ensure that the development agenda is effectively translated into firm actions and concrete results at the local level to benefit communities. Hence, with the intention in mind, many countries work on designing national plans and sectorial priorities to suit the context of the local system. The process must be deliberative at the territorial level, building on immediate local knowledge, values, and a sense of community, which is then feedback to the national policy. For many countries, this means that the local governments play the key roles. When we then have many initiatives for voluntary local reviews to measure the SDG implementations. And there is this insurgent interest for the whole government approach in the SDG localization. Another prominent discourse about the localization of the SDG is the availability of the data to foreground the localization process. Data is important, of course, for formulating, addressing, and monitoring the progress of achieving the SDG. Hence, reformations of official data collection is deemed not only necessary but imperative. Again, the VLR is deemed to be important as it helps to strengthen the innovation of data and measurement frameworks. However, lest we forget, the VLR revolves around the participations at the national until the local government only. In Malaysia, of course, we face the similar situation, which we need data of a wide-ranging indicators to track the overall progress of the sustainable development. To receive the mandate from the Malaysian government, Malaysian Parliament to localize the SDG, we also started with data collection. However, we did not employ the quantitative data collections. We opted for the qualitative grounded research approach. For your information, since 2020 until 2023, we have already covered 85 parliamentary constituencies in the localization process. We started by engaging with the members of the parliament to get the overview of the parliamentary constituency that we will be visiting. And then we will conduct 3 days fieldwork, which involve having focus group discussions with the grassroots communities, which are deemed poor, marginalized, and also discriminated. Yes. We call this as issue mapping process. However, it is important to note that we do not conduct the fieldwork with the set questions. We do not ask them leading questions such as how much is your monthly income, how many people in the households are working, for example. Instead, we started by asking what are the pressing issues that they are facing currently. We then further talk about how these issues affect them socially and their economic conditions. Interestingly, we often find that the most pressing issues, though diverse and very complex, are often intertwined between the social, economic, and environment. More importantly, the issues that they are highlighted are related to 17 SDG, not specifically on 1 or 2 SDG, but they are cross-cutting and interrelated. The EPPGM SDG recorded and documented these issues with consent, and then we analyzed and prioritized the major issue, which often have policy values. Then we further engage with the grassroots community and the local government, the MPs, in exploring the ways to resolve these issues. Fundamentally, our process is multi-stakeholder engagement, then go beyond local government, and then it involves local leaders and also the grassroots communities. However, from the pilot phase until the next couple of years, our qualitative data have received what I personally think was a lukewarm enthusiasm, particularly from the government agencies. The hesitance is not so much about the amount of data that we have, but more on the nature of the data that is in form of descriptions, narratives, and almost like storytelling by the people about their lived experience. Our issue mapping reports contain transcripts of those data which the researchers take pain in transcribing and also record. Nonetheless, as these data are in words and not in number, we are often asked what are the significance of this data. So what if Kampong Pao, Kampong Song Song are facing this problem, but the rest seems to be quite all right, at least according to the statistical data. The data that we have recorded are deemed to be outliers and exceptional cases that are not representational to overall situation of the country, as so they say. Hence, what is significant of these data if they are not representational? Some even ask, yes, what the people say are very important, but then so what? My answer to them is often so, we need to delve deeper to understand their experiences because the responses of the communities, their narratives, the so-called storytelling do not come out of a vacuum. And it is precisely with this grounded research approach that we get to unravel the meanings of the people interactions, social actions, and experiences. We allow the participants to present their own interpretations and explanations instead of us representing them. So please allow me to elaborate further on what I mean. Sorry. These are a set of data obtained from the Welfare Department website. Issues pertaining to welfare has been one of the major issues that have found across the parliamentary constituency that we have conducted the research. Single mothers and youth are among the target groups that documented the most of the issues. With the single mothers from the poor background, many of them voices the welfare aids that they need. In Malaysia, same like many other countries, we do not have specific welfare aid schemes for single mothers. The rationale is because despite being single parents with dependents, many of them are also capable and viable to work and contribute to the labor force. Hence, many single mothers who attempt to apply for the welfare aids will often get rejected. From the table above, we can see the number of single mothers who have received the welfare aids, which are relatively small. When we ask about drugs, most of all the participants who often responded that drugs issues are everywhere. Their remarks may be right, but what is troubling for me personally is how they often equate drug issues to youth. It is a default response from the youth from the poor background to be involved in drugs. Equally interesting is the data that is recorded by the Welfare Department. As you can see from the table below, the number of offences are again relatively small. Please Please note that I'm not disputing the validity of the recorded data. I still believe that the statistical data to be paramount and context for our understanding better, for us to understand better the qualitative data that we have recorded. As shown by the transcript of the screen here, the APPGM SDG findings provided nuanced context of the issues of drugs, not only on the target groups, but also the availability of these drugs. The local could tell us what are popular drugs, macam pil kuda, used among the communities. Indeed, welfare departments have recorded the allocation spent in giving aids for single mother as shown in the previous table, but the APPGM SDG findings demonstrate that the context of these issues, their financial struggles, their juggle as a caregiver and breadwinner, and why is it necessary for them to get some form of welfare aids and how they are not getting them. So again, instead of disputing the statistical data, the APPGM SDG qualitative data can fill in the gaps of knowledge by providing the local context, though direct description, narratives, and opinions from the grassroots communities. While with these two sets of data coming together, we can actually get more comprehensive understanding of the issues. I think it is important at this point to highlight that Malaysian government current intentions to enhance the care economy in Malaysia, which I personally believe that the APPGM SDG findings can actually provide the necessary insights into formulating the feasible and more targeted strategies for advancing the care economy agenda. I know my time is up, but let me just fast forward to this. Food security has always been an important agenda for Malaysian government. Over the years, the Department of Statistics have been tracking the productions of rice in the country. As you can see from the highlighted figures, the production of paddy and rice have been decreasing starting from the year 2019. Indeed, there are many reasons for the decrease, and they can be due to climate change, floods, and according to the farmers, the drastic increase of the cost of productions means that the fertilizer and pesticide are getting more expensive. As the APPGM SDG has gone to over 85 parliamentary constituency, our finding could also show that a trend of possible cost for decrease of paddy production through the struggles of the farmers. So FYI, ladies and gentlemen, Kedah is considered as the rice bowl of Malaysia. Over the year, APPGM SDG have visited the parliamentary constituency listed on the table. So as you can see from the map here, there is a vast plain of paddy field. I hope you can see them, which is further highlighted in green on the right side of the map. The red cycle is the estimated locations for where APPGM SDG has done the field work. Here is the narratives from the farmers. We found that there are a chain of causal issues pertaining to the irrigations of paddy field highlighted by the paddy farmers across different locations within the states. The poor maintenance of the irrigation system has forced many farmers to take the matters into their own hand, to do the cleaning themselves, which was supposed to be done by the government agency. As they are the one who do the cleaning, they need to fork out more money, hence more cost for the production of the paddy. If the irrigation is not clean, of course, the water could not flow out or into the paddy field. The crops will be destroyed either by too much water or too little water during the rainy and the drought season. I would love to go through the Sarawak one, but I don't think I have the time, but yes, I'll stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. What we are seeing here is how statistical research can show you one finding, but a more anthropological, ethnographic, people-centered opinion collation in a systematic, transcribed, analyzed data can show lived realities or life issues on the ground. I think what's emerging for SDG and SSE is a complementary approach to research methodology, and Dr. Su, if she had more time, could illustrate it better. I know Ben, who is an economist, is sitting on the side, and me, a sociologist and anthropologist. It wasn't intentionally done because constantly economists and sociologists have the tug of war for dominance in public policy. But Ben is different, right? He's in SSE. But that's the background. Disaggregated data, lived realities are key. So we looked at the first aspect of the keynote, data, and what kind of data, how do we document stories of people in an analytical way that can lead to public policy and advocacy, including parliamentary advocacy. That's Dr. Sue. So let's give her another hand for the excellent piece. And we can interact with her on the publications and so forth. Now to Prof. Raman from social work, how that fits in to community work, to SDGs, SSEs, and so forth. Let's give a hand to Prof. Abidul. Thank you for coming over here.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Denison and other team members of PPG MSTC, MySDG Academy, and already I'm elderly, so I cannot say Society for Sustainability. I'm very honored to be here today. Actually, I'm a promising diehard social worker in Bangladesh. I've been rooted from social work. I dream to establish social work in every arena because we know inclusivity is sustainability, inclusivity is productivity, and social work is very, very holistic. So social work, community work has a widened view and aspects to ensure people availability and participation in all spheres of life. So I'm very honored and happy to talk about inclusivity. Just let's say a few words on inclusion first. We all know about inclusion. Inclusion is kind of integration, inclusive. Inclusion like cohesion, right? Partnership, togetherness, move together towards a better end, towards better success. So I believe on inclusivity, and social work is such a discipline which promotes inclusivity, which promotes respect and diversity, which promotes togetherness, work together, move together, stay together, and change together. So that's why I found social work is very, very vital and pivotal. Social workers have so many roles in the community towards the better success of achieving 17 goals of SDGs and all the targets so far. Social work has the great bottom line impacts in the fields to mobilize resources, to mobilize people, to mobilize the disadvantaged group, mobilize the backdrop people, mobilize the live behind people, mobilize the real thing that is, as Jesus is saying, no one live behind, to creating whole society concept, our society for all. Actually, I found social work very similar, and I found this topic very interesting because social work is just a growing discipline that enables people through academic research, academic teaching learning, methodologies, techniques, tools, and in practice. But I found lacking of social work in my country, Bangladesh, in some Asian countries. That social work is supposed to be in the field, but social workers are very busy within the classroom. Actually, that is my lacking of perception, that is my self-grievance, that social workers should be in the field, should be in community, social workers should be activated in the field and community. Please go to the next slide. Inclusion is the realization that everyone has essential dignity and everyone has something to contribute. What social work says in this ground, the first principle of social work is recognizing oath and dignity of every people. Never say no to anyone, either he is capable or incapable, because social work's mission, vision is enabling people. Social work works with people problem towards the better solution. So social work is very, very practical. Social work is comprehensive. Social work is holistic. It touches every single corner and keystones of the society towards the development. May I request to see the next slide, please. In the summit, World Summit for Social Development, actually, in 1995, they just produced a very good concept, a society for all, where no one will be excluded. Everyone will be prioritized, everyone will be evaluated, everyone will be respected. Just say towards a very stable, safe, just, tolerant, respecting diversity, equality of opportunity, participation of all people, all the keywords, very familiar in social work. These are very inclined to the principle of social work. So if the principles, basic tools are very similar, familiar, aligned with social work practice, why not social worker shouldn't have any role to achieve SDGs? My friend Supi Kim came from South Korea. He is working in grassroots SDGs in Daegu social work. Professor Chiu is here, and other friends came from different parts of the world. But in my country, I just found some lackings. There are so many works been happening, but social work by name in particular is not being implemented, executed. That is my sorrow. That's why I promise to establish social work as a profession in my country with the teamwork, with the support of my global friends. I wrote before my name, social worker Habib Rahman. It's my dream, it's my passion. Actually, I mentioned that I'm a diehard social worker. I love to see social work as a profession in my country. So have a big clap for that, for the challenges. 5 more minutes, right? Still 5 more minutes. No worry for that. I will be concluding within the time, please. Next slide. There is some levels involved in social inclusion process, and social work has a great impact role. Here, it starts from individual and ends to global, or reverse, having some global ideas utilizing local, global context to local, so local to global. And social work works for micro, meso, and macro aspects. Social work starts with the individual, social work ends with the community. So it's working with individual and global together within this all aspects of life. Next slide, please. And there are some steps promoting social inclusion. There is visibility, consideration, access to social interaction, rights, resources to fully participate. Social work mobilizes resources for the people. Social work refers people to the problem solver, right? Social work creates visibility. Social work creates consideration. Social work is very considerate for all people and every people in the society. Next slide, please. And what dimension of social inclusion? Social work is very inclusive. I mentioned social work is very comprehensive as well. So there are many dimensions in social inclusion. If we could include, if we could prioritize these areas, intervention like physical, political, legal, rational, social, and spatial, that is structural, right? Economic, cultural, environmental, so many diversity is there in the inclusion process. And social worker can execute their tools and techniques, strategies, intervention tools in all these aspects, just towards mobilizing people to achieve SDGs globally by 2030. And our country has a target to achieve SDGs similarly by 2030 and by 2031 to be developed countries. So in our country, it's very, very needed because still many people are living behind. So keeping people, no one behind, it's very difficult to achieve SDGs finally. Next slide, please. I just found some role. Already I talked many here, social inclusion and the face diversity, the role of social worker. It just promotes naturality, inclusivity, and diversity. Social work is diverse by its nature because social work works for the disadvantaged, social worker work for the vulnerable group, social worker work for the group, those who are not getting the rights, right, and the facilities, and with their needs and demands. So here is use option. The next slide, please. IFSW, International Federation of Social Workers. Actually, they are the recognizing global body too. to professionalize social work. It is, they mention all the terms are here that promotes social work is an academic discipline that promotes social change, development, social cohesion, empowerment, liberation of or freedom of people, principle of social justice, human rights, collective responsibility, respect for diversity. So all the terms are very inclined, positively aligned to the thematic aspects, all the dimensions of social inclusion, community inclusion. So it's very, very necessary. Next one, please. Thank you. And there are some practice areas, just if I say, micro, meso, macro dimensions of their community work, like policy formulation, analysis, advocacy, political interventions, in the bottom line, historical, cultural, political, socio-economic conditions, research, everywhere there is social work. So my time so far is close to up. Next slide, please. And the next. Helen Keller said, the last slide, please. I'll conclude here. Inclusivity is sustainability. Actually, I found my talk, I found my knowledge, I found my summary over these 3 words or 2 words. Inclusivity is sustainability. There is nothing rather than inclusivity. To see a very good community, to see a very horizontal relationship, to see like Singaporean model, people for people, people for government, government for people. It's very reciprocal. Without reciprocal, inclusive relationship, no one can smile together. Togetherness is very important. Yeah, time's up. Thank you. Thank you for questions here. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Prof. I know you have so much to share. We spent a lot of time at your conference in Dhaka. But I think what's emerged out is that social work as a discipline, academic discipline, training discipline, it's also a key component for SDGs and SSE. Without that trained person who can actually empower, support, and coordinate is very critical. This is something we can take up as we listen to all the case studies that will come up in the parallel sessions. The role played by the movers and shakers in each of the projects, whether it is the HomeNet project or whether it's ASAFA or it's any one of the teams, we could see that. So thank you very much. Let me pass the time to Dr. Eri, who comes from Indonesia. She is currently the president of ASEC, which is linked to a global movement called REPES, which is an intercontinental organization. You can talk with her. What's the difference between an international organization and an intercontinental organization? And ASEC, many of the speakers from Asia are from ASEC, and Dr. Eri comes from one of the largest Indonesian organizations called Bina Swadaya. Pak Bambang used to come, but he has not been well, who is the founding person of the organization. So Dr. Eri on SSE and its link to SDGs and how SSE is building inclusive communities, not just from an economic sense, but much more from governance and leadership at the community. Over to you, Dr. Eri. Let's give her a hand.
Thank you, Dr. Jameson. Terima kasih. I don't have any slides because I want to communicate with you, like talking friends with friends. So, this is my line. So, selamat pagi. Pagi means good morning. In Indonesia, though might be this is already goes to the afternoon, but I feel pagi means spirit, still fresh. If I would like to make a little bit ice breaking. If I call it selamat pagi, then the floor should answer pagi, pagi, pagi 3 times pagi. Okay?
Oh,
so that means inspired, inspired, inspired. Selamat pagi.
Pagi, pagi, pagi.
That's great. I got it. The energy. Pagi, thank you. Pagi. Until at night, it's still pagi. The spirit is pagi. So this is the greeting. Okay. This is really a good, what you call it, a good structures of the panels. At the first with the database, how it grounded community the inspirations. That means what you call it, interpretations of the data from the community. And then we have the human resources of the social workers. And then from myself, early from the ASEC, I would like to bring to the agent. That means the building the inclusive community. So at the first one that will bring us together to sit here, only the one word. That means this is the SDGs that we have the common word here. This morning we have heard from Ibu Dato Hajah Hanifa that there is still a huge gap of the target of the SDGs. She shared this morning that though the SDGs will be evaluated in the 2030, but currently that means how many years left? Something with 6 years left or 7. There is still only 15 countries, 15% of the countries on the track. 15, that is still a huge of gap. And then 48% are moderate or severely off track. I don't know who are we in with our own country. So Indonesia more or less in the 15. I have heard from I have checked in the SDGs dashboard. So, and then the SDGs, UN SDGs reported as well, there is 5 urgent actions have to be taken, 5. And the 4 targeted to the government. This is related to the government commitment, integrated policy, as well national and then subnational action plan and so on. And then one action is targeted to the international community. However, if I observe all the message goes to the government and the large scale of corporations. So this is no wonder if I observe from the ASEAN policy, how it brings these options into the government. In the ASEAN policy, ASEAN, Southeast ASEAN, yeah, they have they promoted the inclusive business model. Again, inclusive is everywhere. Inclusive social workers, inclusive community, and this is inclusive business. So many terminology flying around us. What is actually the inclusive business according to the ASEAN? The ASEAN defined the inclusive business is like a business model that link the values from the supply chain by involving 40% of the community under the bottom of the pyramid. So that they would like that the large company open more the door along the supply chains to involve the small scale micro entrepreneurs into the supply chains of the business. This is the inclusive business. That means opening the access of economy to them. What we can summary from this, the ASEAN goal in the blueprint of the economic blueprint is the inclusive growth. Yeah. So, but they are still looking for the path, how to bring the inclusive into the growth. But if we look from the guideline of the inclusive business model, then it is more access to economy. But they don't know how to bring the values into the business. And that is the challenge. That is the strength of the SSE. That is the strength, that is the contributions of the inclusive community. Yeah, so that is. And then, as you know, in the ASEAN, I have more data in the ASEAN, but I think in the ASEAN this will be not so far difference. The business is in fact dominated by informal sector, 80% in ASEAN, dominated by the informal sector. And this informal sector consists of micro and small enterprises, and they are driven by community economy, economy, not by the capitalist economy, where these most large corporations are more basically based on this system. Yeah. So that means the community economy is differently. And community economy consists of various models. If the capitalist economy might be only some, like the market-driven, multilateral, but the community economy, so far, we are here are the community economy. The SSA practitioners who come here, who will present under these 41 papers, there are community economies. That means the economic is not single, economic is plurals. And we are here, the inclusive community are plural. There is a lot of model. There is fair trade, there is a cooperative, there is social enterprise, so many. Forest user group from Nepal, there is HomeNet, and so many, so varied in under the community's economy. So the community economies mostly work under the SSE principles. What are these principles? At the first, integrating ethical values, participatory decision making, community benefits, and environmental conservations, and the last, sustainable economy into the business practices. So we refer this as the principle of the inclusive economy. Is there inclusive economy exist? It exists. Part of them are here. So don't miss the presentations in the next schedules. And then what next I want to share is actually what is the contributions of the SSE inclusive communities to SDGs? Let us try to bring the gap. The values, because as I said in the previously, that the large companies still looking the path. They can open the access, but how to bring the values into this access? They will learn from us. So, and we recognize as well, the ILO, hygiene will confirm that, has recognized as well that the SSE contributes significantly to decent work and supported by the UN as well. UN General Assembly has as well voices that the SSE is very supportive to the sustainable development. Now, we have, this is the momentum. There is about 85% gap, yeah, or 15% achieved on track, and there is 85 not yet on track. This is, we have to be accelerated. How? By strengthening the inclusive business and introducing this inclusive business into the large scale of company. So to materialize the notions of ILO and UN General Assembly, because this is the momentum, so there is 5 strategies has to be built. At the first, mapping of the SSE organizations, and the second, building the database for capacity building purposes and advocacy, and the third is strengthening the network among the SSE organizations as a system, not individually. This is the weakness of the SSE communities. We are working busy with our own, but we are still not yet strength in building the network. Therefore, ESSEC together with the RIPES try to build as a network for the advocacy. And the fourth, but not least, strengthen the SSE organizations to become the best tools for advocacy. So we want to advocate the large company to the government, how to bring the value of the SSE into the process of business by showing the evidence, the best practices. So this conference is part of the small showcase that we want to show the public the best case of the SSE in bringing to the SDGs. So I hope you can enjoy the conference and then inspire you, and then together with ESSEC and RIPES to promoting the SSE more in broader spectrum. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Irene. I think we have shifted in terms, we have looked at social work from Habibul as the human resources and potential. But we are linking it with solidarity economy, which is building the community's ability. And often social workers have been driven by grants and the charity model, whereas SSC is building on economic empowerment and wealth creation, shifting from charity to more dignity-based approach to wealth creation, investment for equity as opposed to grants for social impact. So there's a mindset change. That doesn't mean we are becoming capitalist, market-driven, but critical of the context and change, but to look at alternative models of community empowerment. So whether it's social enterprise, social entrepreneurship, various terms have been drawn in, but solidarity economy from the case studies that you would hear from HomeNet, forest-based users, various other examples, SFR, and so forth, you will capture that. And the dynamics of social work, policy, data, all interchanging in a more cross-cutting nature of the 17 SDG goals. Now, we thought it's important for us in this thoughts, ideological, practitioners' struggles to also come to regional thinking, regional in the sense UNSCAP. And a key player at the global level is actually ILO. Many of us in Malaysia are not so much close to the workers' movement, trade unions, and so forth. But at the global level, ILO has been very innovative because of decent work, SDGs, workers' rights, and so forth. And ILO played a key role at the UN task force on SSE, and Hejin coming from ILO, from the enterprise section, brings that dimension, and also to see how governments have responded to in Asia, and what is that relevance to us to public policy, and also for parliamentarian group and researchers. So I think we are adding that richness in our discussion, and we thank Jin from, although from Korea, but flying from Bangkok to us here. Let's give her a hand, and we integrate with the UN system at this point. Thank you. Over to you.
Hello everyone. I hope you don't mind that I'm standing here because I'm able to see the slides more clearly. Just very pleased and honored to be here. Thank you so much for all the organizational efforts that went into it. My name is Hee-jun, and I'm Technical Officer based in the International Labour Organization Regional Office in Bangkok. And I've been managing a project on youth entrepreneurship in the region, but also on the social and solidarity economy, creating that space for informing policy dialogue with the different government stakeholders, but also employers, workers, and the SSC representative institutions at large. So today for my presentation, aligned with the conference thematic area of building inclusive communities through the SDGs and the SSC, social and solidarity economy, my presentation is promoting access and inclusion in and through the social and solidarity economy in Asia. So the main message, because the time is short, that I want to convince all of you, and I think that all of you are on board with the idea, is that really social and solidarity economy entities are well positioned to contribute and achieve access and inclusion related targets of the localized sustainable development goals. And this is where the efforts should be geared towards, because we don't have a lot of time left, as Dr. Ari mentioned, and also during the opening remarks stage, right, to achieve the 2030 development agenda. Now, Dr. Ari mentioned this global momentum on the social and solidarity economy. Yes, indeed, this conference is being held in a historical global momentum. So there has been a member states of the International Labour Organization that gathered to adopt the resolution concerning decent work and the social and solidarity economy, giving it a policy recognition that this needs to be supported globally in all the countries. That was 2022 in June. And at this, around the same time, the OECD came up with their own recommendation. If you look at the more regional momentum. You have the European Union that adopted their action plan on social and solidarity economy. African Union drafted their 10-year strategy to promote the SSC. And finally, just last year, 2023, in April, the UN adopted a resolution on the social and solidarity for sustainable development. Now, what is this social and solidarity economy resolution, UN resolution, all about? Well, just to mention that the Asian countries that really strongly co-sponsored the resolution include Indonesia, Japan, and Mongolia. And there are a number of Asia Pacific countries that contributed to the discussion and also in advancing towards the adoption, including China, India, Iran, Iraq, Republic of Korea, Malaysia. So you guys were really champions in getting this adopted, Pakistan, Syria, and Thailand. And finally, I just want to point out that this resolution provides, first of all, an official definition at the global level. This is the first time that we have an official definition of the social and solidarity economy. And also, it explicitly mentions how the social and solidarity economy entities can contribute to achievement of the localization of the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, you may wonder, so what is this definition of the social and solidarity economy? It's quite broad term, right? Very encompassing and very inclusive. But I want to point out the principles that are really driving and guiding the social and solidarity economy entities. And they are voluntary cooperation and mutual aid, democratic and participatory governance, autonomy and independence, primacy of people and social purpose over capital in the distribution of surpluses and profits as well as assets. So that's a mouthful. So I kind of want to break it down because there are many, many different terms, especially in the ASEAN and the broader Asia Pacific region, when we talk about a business doing good, right? So we mentioned inclusive businesses mentioned by Dr. Eri, right? Starting bottom of the pyramid. But you have also similar terms as social entrepreneurship. Those individuals with very innovative ideas that want to create social impact while serving the community. Social impact businesses is another very emerging theme and term in this region, and environmental social governance, but there are many others, business and human rights, etc. I argue that there are some similarities and differences you can observe by looking at these terms. So for instance, all these terms encompass giving social, economic, and environmental objectives to the communities. They provide quality and equitable jobs, right? Finally, they provide goods and services for a particular community, often disadvantaged and marginalized communities. But I would say that the distinct features of the social and solidarity economy are highlighted three. So one is the collective ownership and participatory governance. Second is the primacy of people and social purpose over capital. Now, this is a key distinction of the SSC compared to other types of terms, because oftentimes they try to balance the social and the economic profit objectives together. But here, clearly, according to the definition, the SSC is the primacy of social purpose over capital. And finally, I would like to highlight that SSC plays a really big role in promoting and advancing societal and political function. For instance, HomeNet, Southeast Asia and Thailand advocates for informal workers, domestic workers, home-based workers, and directly with the government, and they have played a very influential role in that policy advocacy space through the collective action, right? So I really argue that in order to accelerate the contribution of the social and solidarity economy towards SDGs, I think all of you in the room will present the different case studies. I think we should really focus on how can we activate these three unique SSC features towards access and inclusion targets of the SDGs at the localized level, so at the subnational, at the regional and local levels, right? So just because we don't have a lot of time, I'll just quickly mention that access and inclusion are really central to the SDG framework, and the SSC entities are well positioned to advance access and inclusion, right? So here are just some examples to demonstrate how the SSC entities really take their distinct features that I mentioned before in order to implement and also accelerate, contribute to the access or inclusion-oriented SDGs targets. So 1.4, providing access to basic services, equal rights to economic resources. So research clearly shows that, for instance, like for platform cooperatives, they offer higher wages for its members by charging the actual cost, real cost, compared to its like capitalist counterparts. And also like 10.2 on promoting social, economic, and political inclusion. So open and voluntary membership, which is enshrined as a in the constitution of cooperatives, but also as a key principle of the social and solidarity economy. And finally, this ownership aspect and members' participation, it aligns directly with the SDG target 16.7, right? So you can see a clear alignment there. So moving on, I would like to briefly present to you what the ILO has been doing in this space to create this policy dialogue and also to bring more awareness and visibility of the social and solidarity landscape in Asia. So we've conducted through the first and the second phase, this mapping study to really try to see what are the social and solidarity economy entities that are operating in the countries, what are the policy gaps, what are the opportunities, and then we came up with some recommendations. We are currently conducting the second phase now, and we've actually had national advisory committees that are set up in all of the 5 countries. So you see the pictures here where we held a kickoff meeting, and we are currently finalizing the studies right now. And one of the key sections is really looking at the social and solidarity economy's contribution to the SDGs. So I think this conference actually will be a really nice one to really see if you'll be interested into participating in this regional dialogue and also sustaining that, because we'll be having a regional conference where we'll showcase all the findings from the 5 countries in April, so April 23rd to 24th. So if you're more interested in this, you can come to me and then we'll have a more sharing discussion afterwards. So finally, just wanted to say that for the ILO, we will continue promoting the social and solidarity economy towards the SDGs. So we are going to continue this policy dialogue, also implement in-depth tailored country interventions. So before there was a mention of Malaysia, where care economy is a clear priority, but also in Cambodia and Thailand, that has been an emerging theme, but also in the value chains, database, cooperative database, law and policy development progress in the country. So ILO is playing a key role in all of that space. And finally, we would like to partner with you because together we can build a greater impact, right? So with ASEC, as well as ICAP, and then of course REPEX, so many of these regional and global organizations would love to partner to promote the SDG together. And finally, there will be a UN General Assembly report on the social and solidarity economy that will be discussed this year actually at the General Assembly of the SSC in Vietnam. So thank you so much for your attention, and I'm available to discuss further after this. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that very enlightening discussion. Do you know when the UN Assembly report is targeted for?
As I understand it, it will be available around September, and so later
This year?
Yeah. Yeah. Or maybe 1 month.
Maybe, no, it's 1.5 years. So it's going to be appointed for the 70th General Assembly.
2025.
2025.
Okay. Fantastic. I think conceptually, ideologically, and then seeing adoption of it by UN, UN-based Asia Pacific countries. Interestingly, Malaysia, I think at that point, many of us did highlight, and Ministry of Foreign Affairs and relevant parties were involved. That's key, but I think the definitions might be helpful as we look at our case studies and approaches and to see how we can tweak our activities along those lines, and also to work closely with Bangkok office, not very far away, and to sort of get into into mainstream our activities and work. Okay, we come to the 2 gentlemen on the corner, listening quietly and attentively. Both have been very involved in SDGs and SSE. Dato Saifuddin Abdullah needs no introduction. So Dato, let's give a hand for Dato to share his views and reflections. I think it should be on, is it? Tanda, can you pass the other mic? Over to you, Dato.
Thank you. Then we say Assalamualaikum and Selamat Pagi. See, you guys are not following orders. I must congratulate the four speakers on their excellent articulation and presentation. Denison knows Ben and I very well, and every time both of us have to speak, he will ensure that Ben speaks after me so that he can correct me.
I do.
I have basically 4 points to share. First is looking at some of the backgrounds that bring all of us here and all of the work that we have been doing thus far. There is a historical background that there is this belief that if we leave everything to politicians and businessmen, then there will be not only gaps, but the gaps will be widened and the number of the underserved will even increase. That's basically the reason why, if there are the three circles that we are familiar with, we have the politics and business, then there is the third sector, as we call it, that is the, depending on which mazhab or which school of thought you are coming from, whether you want to call yourself an activist, a social worker, an SSE, a human rights defender or fighter, good Samaritan, volunteers, you are there. So I wouldn't want to argue on members of the third sector. We are like a coalition of people with values in our heart, trying to do the best that we can. So whatever that we are doing is really an approach or a method. You may even look at it as a philosophy or a set of principles or ideology, but I think the common denominator would be values that we share at the universally. But there is also the immediate background, something that is more contemporary. One is, of course, the effects of COVID-19. Actually, COVID-19 bear all the downsides and the problems that we are faced with in the systems and the institutions, be it local, be it regional, be it international. It's like, I mean, it's a real wake-up call. I know it sounds like a cliche, but it is a real wake-up call. For diplomats like me, we even learned that, there is a new South and North. It's no longer about the rich and the poor, but it's people with vaccine and people without vaccine. And why it happened that way? Just because somehow the system has broken down, or the international architecture, if you like, has broken down. We complained about it before COVID-19. COVID-19 simply proved that what we were complaining were actually true. There is also the unintended effects of digital technology that we are suffering from, and unless we are careful, we may go down a different way of doing things, and then everybody who are seated down there will be looking at all of us on stage and then start thinking, is this AI in operation? Are you real? And things like that. But we are lucky. We are lucky in the sense that there is this international momentum or global momentum, as mentioned earlier. And we are also lucky because that momentum came about in a formal structure at the UN called the SDG. So that would be the background why we are all here. My second point is that whatever we are, SSE, activists, social workers, etc., we have been around even before the SDG, and we are here to stay. And I think we can have the liberty of claiming that if we say we need to reset the human system, then we are the actors and the shakers and the movers that can actually help to reset the system, the institutions. Why? Because we have been doing that all this while. The only thing now is we are given that room, there is that window of opportunity because there is that global movement and there is that international framework that is ready. So the next point is how do we position ourselves and our work? My third point is really then to strengthen the SSE and whatever that we are doing. And if I may just outline a couple of things. Number one is in the area of education. A, for the younger generation, the students. And how do we do it then? B, by good documentation, the case studies that we have published, let our case studies be as celebrated as many of those case studies, for instance, at Harvard Business School. Yeah. Second, we really need to sensitize people who are in position to make decisions in business and in politics. You know, Dr. Ari, why only 15% of the countries are on track for the SDG? This is the fault of the politicians. I don't know if there's any one of them in this room. At least I know why, at least I know how Malaysia came at the last moment to be one of those co-sponsors. Yeah. Kakak Rohani will watch that not many politicians are policy oriented. So you need to get those people in. Rather than talking about personalities and politics, we need to sensitize politicians to speak on policies. That brings me to the fourth point. Something that I would like to propose to do in ASEAN, Eric. ASEAN has a way of doing things. That every 10 years they will come up with their new blueprint. And that 10 year always start with the year 5. So 2025 is when they will come up with the new 10-year blueprint. It so happened that Malaysia always chair that year 5. So it was 2015, now 2025, before that was 2005. So we still have time to work with MOFA of Malaysia, in particular, and the ASEAN Secretariat. So you have Denison, who's based in KL, and you have Eri, who's based in Jakarta. We need to bring whatever that we are talking here into that 10-year blueprint with whatever name, whatever thing. And how do we sensitize them? Among others, I mean, there are many ways. Among others is we need to change the model. The ASEAN model of doing things, as mentioned by Eri just now, is that it is the definition of inclusive is still, Denison, is still very top-bottom kind of thing. So inclusivity is seen as giving access and benefits. We need to bring them to another level as we understand it, that it is also about these people who need access, who need the benefits to become actors and decision makers. So we need to tweak that, to change that approach. I think that is of utmost importance in the ASEAN region. Many things are very top bottom. Inclusivity is defined in a very limited way. So we need to enhance that. And then, if I can give a final example, is that in ASEAN, leaders always talk about, oh, we need to strengthen intra-ASEAN trade. Okay. And again, we are talking about formal businesses, whereas there are the informal sector that is flourishing. So we can say that SSE is one way to strengthen that intra-trade issue that ASEAN leaders are, trying to find ways to overcome. So those are my submission for this morning. Thank you, Benson.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dato'. I think you raised some key points. And I think definitely on the ASEAN 2025 is something we can take up by tomorrow and work something out vis-a-vis SDG, SSE, whether it's a 10-year blueprint or just some reflections, but I'm sure Ejin and the ILO team could assist us in the process. Okay, last but not the end, it's just a start, Ben, in this morning, because you've got many more rounds to share your views. Over to Dr. Ben Quinones. We call him the father of SSE in Asia, because it was Ben and Pak Bambang, and I think I was part of it in a small way when ASEC was established 2015 or 2014 or 2012 here in Kuala Lumpur. So over to Dr. Ben.
Thank you, Dr. Dinason. Thank you to APPGM, MySDG, for this opportunity to be part of this very wonderful and very fruitful, meaningful conference. What I'd like to do is to connect, the presentations to the issues of this conference. We have 5 major issues, and we're going to come back to these issues in every session. So I'd like to propose to you a framework for understanding and synthesizing what they are saying, For example, we have in page, actually there's no pages in the program, but if you turn to the back page of the 4th page, there are 5 questions there that are asked. The first 2 questions are this. Number 1 question, how are the SDGs as the goals or targets highlighted in the papers? Is the first question. Second question, what are the core issues and features highlighted and practiced? Now, the first question is already explained by all the speakers. And Hijin An also talked about the core features. So in other words, these are the things that you can learn from the papers and all the papers that will be presented. Now, what are the, these 2 issues, how are they addressed by the speakers? I'd like to propose to you the concept of relationship between enterprise and economy, community and economy. To understand that, it's easier for you to look into the relationship between trees and the forest. Trees comprise the forest, but the forest is greater than the sum of all trees. Now, you can talk about community or enterprise, but if you don't talk about forest or the economy, you cannot understand what the economy is. So, how are these covered in the presentation? Professor, Raman talked about inclusive community. Hijin talked about what are the kind of enterprises that comprise or that create inclusive economy. We are going to discuss this further in the papers. So these 2 questions are very important to understand because, if you, for example, if you like to have a mahogany forest, you must choose mahogany trees to plant. If you want a pine forest, you must choose pine trees to plant into the land to create a pine forest. Now, if you want an inclusive economy, inclusive community, you must choose the enterprises that you want to promote and to strengthen. So many of the case studies that we're going to present here in the next session focuses on certain kind of enterprise organizations that contribute to what is called inclusive community. Now, Professor Rahman was talking about inclusive community, and then Dr. Lewis amended that terminology. She said inclusive community economy, because an economy is embedded in the community. If you cannot find economy in the community, you are missing a lot. Because if you are a social worker and you focus on the community but not the economy, you miss the dynamics of entrepreneurship, the role of entrepreneurs in developing the economy. So the next question is, what are the challenges faced by the case studies in fostering inclusive communities? And the number 4, how can we encourage collaboration between various stakeholders, such as government, agencies, NGOs, and private sector to build more inclusive communities and achieve the SDGs? You see, Professor Rahman was saying, let us all be social workers. Think like social workers, you know. Then we will have the heart to help the communities. This is the solution actually, you know. Because if we don't think like a social worker, we will not go there and teach the people entrepreneurship. But Dr. Ere says, not only, you know, and Dr. Denison says, we'll not only think about community organizing, because you see, community organizing, your problem is where to get the funds to support your community organizing. That's why the concept of entrepreneurship must also be taught in the communities. Because you see what is happening in many communities, maybe 90 to 95% of the enterprises there are micro, small, and medium. So they are very small, yeah? The carrying capacity per capita is very small. If you have only 10,000 ringgit, you cannot borrow from the bank 1 million ringgit, because you cannot carry 1 million ringgit if you have only a capital of 10,000. Yeah? Therefore, you have to increase the capital base of these micro small enterprises. If you don't have this mindset, you cannot, you know, improve these micro small enterprises. And be in mind that they comprise 90–95% of the enterprises in the community. Now, how do you grow the economy? It's not top-down approach. Yeah, you have to grow the micro small enterprises, because when you put money into smart enterprises, the money revolves very fast. That's how the economy grows. So that's why this is what is called bottom-up approach. That's why what Professor Rahman was saying, and also Dr. Eri, look into the local economy, and that was also what Hijin was saying. Localizing the SDGs means go to the local economy, develop it, and the next question is, who are the actors that you have to strengthen? You might call it social enterprises, you might call it cooperatives, associations, but these are collective. Yeah? These are the collective. So how do we promote collaboration with government? First of all, you have to befriend politicians, you know, like that Osaiko. Every time when I first participated in the ASEAN People's Forum 2015, he was not talking with the NGOs, and some of my friends said, what is the government official doing in our NGO society here? But you see, after a while, politicians like him will call you brother, you know? Even if we belong to different parents. You know? If you have friends like this, they can listen to you. And ILO, UN has a word for that. They call it social dialogue. You have to conduct this, you know. This is the only way. And for that reason, this conference will have to think of how did EPPGF constructed this approach, you know, of convincing the parliamentarians to support social work. This is really an experiment. I was telling my colleagues in the Philippines, maybe I should bring, you know, this parliamentary, calling congressman, to the next session here, because we don't have this initiative in the Philippines. Our congressmen are thinking of so many projects, and here we have a very good example. And this is what I like participants, in this conference to learn, the approach of APPGM of trying to convince politicians, parliamentarians to go down to the communities, help these communities, bring resources there, and then improve on the entrepreneurship in the local community. So thank you very much. Of course, the last point is you must document. Without documentation, it will never be here, And if you know the vehicle, the enterprise, this is creating value added in the community, you will know what is your respondent, for your research. And this is what we are going to hear in the next this afternoon and the next day. What are the kind of organization enterprises that are doing the work in the grassroots and communities? Thank you very much.